Hello and welcome. I am Pranay Upadhyay and you are watching Namaste World, your daily window into the biggest stories shaping India and the world. We begin in America. The US ouster of Venezuela's Nicolás Maduro has jolted China's Latin America strategy, exposing risk to its oil, loans and influence. In South Asia, India's spiritual influence reached Venezuela's corridors of power as Nicolás Maduro secretly drew guidance from an Andhra Pradesh guru. A mocking dance by Venezuela's Nicolás Maduro reportedly pushed Donald Trump to order a dramatic US raid that ended his rule. But the biggest news of the day, Nepal has extended a strict curfew in Birgunj as religious unrest over a viral video spills across border districts. All that and more. Global flashpoints, power plays and stories that matter coming up in this edition of Namaste World. Authorities in Nepal have extended a curfew in Birgunj amid ongoing religious tensions sparked by a controversial TikTok video. The unrest began in Dhanusha district, where a video uploaded by two youths allegedly hurt religious sentiments, leading to vandalism of a mosque. This triggered protests that quickly spread to Birgunj near the Indian border, with demonstrators burning tires and defying initial prohibitory orders. The district administration office in Parsa imposed the curfew yesterday from 6 p.m. to 8 a.m. in this morning. With the situation still tense, it is now being extended in many nearby areas. Officials have warned that security forces may shoot on sight during the curfew. Residents are urged to stay indoors except for emergencies and to coordinate with police if movement is essential. Essential services including ambulance, media, health workers and air passengers with tickets will be facilitated. The administration hopes the measures will restore calm as investigation continues. The dramatic US-led removal of Venezuela's President Nicolás Maduro has reshaped Latin America's power map, rattled Beijing's strategic bets on oil, money and influence, and raised uneasy questions about American hard power in rival spheres. As China recalibrates after losing a key foothold, is Venezuela a warning of how fast global influence can vanish? Here is a report by Farhan Khan.
The dramatic removal of Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro by the United States has sent shockwaves far beyond Latin America. And one of the biggest losers may be China. For Beijing, Venezuela was not just another partner. It was a strategic foothold in the US's own backyard. China had backed Maduro politically, financially, and diplomatically for years, even as Washington imposed harsh sanctions and tried to isolate his regime. Now, with Maduro gone and the US signaling it wants to run Venezuela's oil industry, China is being forced to rethink its Latin America playbook. So, why does this matter so much to Beijing? First, oil. Venezuela holds the world's largest proven oil reserves, and China has been its biggest crude buyer and largest creditor. Oil accounts for about 95% of Venezuela's export earnings, and Chinese refiners relied on heavily discounted Venezuelan crude to diversify supplies. While Venezuelan oil made up only about 4% of China's imports, it was cheap, flexible, and strategically useful, especially for producing bitumen used in construction. Second, money. Between 2007 and 2015, China lent Venezuela more than $60 billion in oil-backed loans, the largest Chinese financial exposure anywhere in Latin America. Although most of that debt has reportedly been repaid, around $12 billion is still outstanding. After Maduro's ouster, Chinese regulators reportedly asked banks to urgently review their Venezuela exposure, a sign of real anxiety in Beijing. Third, geopolitics. China had elevated ties with Venezuela to an all-weather strategic partnership in 2023. Caracas openly backed Beijing on Taiwan and Hong Kong, while China shielded Maduro from Western pressure. The sudden US intervention is therefore a diplomatic embarrassment, especially since Maduro had met a senior Chinese delegation just a day before his capture. Now comes the uncomfortable question for China. Does the US action set a precedent? Some analysts wonder whether Washington's decisive move in Venezuela could be cited as a template in future crises, including Taiwan. But here, the comparison breaks down quickly. Any Chinese military move against Taiwan would carry vastly higher risks. Severe Western sanctions, possible US military intervention, and massive disruption to global semiconductor supply chains. In fact, officials in Taiwan reportedly see Maduro's capture as a deterrent, not an encouragement. A reminder of how quickly regimes can collapse when confronted by US power. For now, China is unlikely to confront the US directly over Venezuela. It has no security commitments there, and Beijing tends to avoid military entanglements far from home. Instead, it will likely absorb the loss, protect what assets it can, and quietly recalibrate. But the bigger picture is clear. Latin America is becoming a sharper battleground between the US and China. With Washington reviving the Monroe Doctrine and Beijing expanding its global footprint, Venezuela may be just the opening chapter in a far larger strategic contest. And for China, the message is uncomfortable but unmistakable. Influence built on loans and oil deals can disappear overnight when hard power enters the equation. With Farhan Khan, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
As Venezuela's strongman Nicolás Maduro sits in US custody, a startling chapter from his past is resurfacing. His deep spiritual bond with an Indian guru, from Andhra Pradesh ashram to presidential palace. Faith quietly shaped power in Caracas. Could devotion reveal what ideology concealed for years? Here is a report by Srijita Sen Majumdar.
Venezuela's president Nicolás Maduro, now detained by American forces, has a remarkable Indian connection few are aware of. Before his political empire crumbled, the dictator sought spiritual meaning in a humble Andhra Pradesh town. In 2005, as Venezuela's foreign minister, Maduro and his wife Celia Flores traveled to Puttaparthi to visit the Prasanthi Nilayam ashram, home of Indian spiritual guru Satya Sai Baba. Rare photographs show a young Maduro sitting humbly on the floor during a private audience with the godman. This wasn't diplomatic protocol. Raised Catholic, Maduro was introduced to Sai Baba's teachings by his wife and both became devoted followers. How devoted? In Maduro's presidential office at Miraflores Palace, alongside revolutionary portraits of Simón Bolívar and Hugo Chávez, hung a large portrait of Satya Sai Baba. For 13 years, the man accused of crushing dissent made decisions under the gaze of an Indian spiritual leader who preached love all, serve all. When Sai Baba died in April 2011, Venezuela did something no other Latin American country did. Under Maduro's influence, the National Assembly passed an official condolence resolution declaring national mourning and recognizing the Guru's spiritual contribution to humanity. Even as his regime collapsed, Maduro remained devoted. Just 2 months ago, on November 23, 2025, he honored Sai Baba's centenary, calling him a being of light and stating, "May the wisdom of this great teacher continue to enlighten us." But Maduro isn't alone. Delcy Rodriguez, now serving as Venezuela's acting president after Maduro's capture, is also a devoted Sai Baba follower. She has visited the Puttaparthi ashram twice in recent years. Her first visit was in August 2023 during India's G20 summit. Despite the official diplomatic mission, Rodriguez made a personal pilgrimage to pay respects at Sai Baba Samadhi. She returned in October 2024, expressing deep joy and saying Sai Baba's presence gave her calm and tranquility. According to India's Ministry of External Affairs, spiritual centers established by Indian gurus, including Satya Sai Baba followers, Brahma Kumaris, and Radha Swami, operate throughout Venezuela, showing India's deep spiritual influence in the South American nation. While Maduro faces an uncertain future in US custody, his devotion to an Indian spiritual master remains one of the most unexpected chapters in his controversial story. With Srijita Sen Majumdar, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
A defiant dance on state television may have sealed Nicolás Maduro's fate, turning US warning into action and triggering the most dramatic American intervention in Latin American history. As Washington installs a workable alternative and signals zero tolerance for mockery, a chilling question now echoes across the region: who could be next? Here is a report.
It was one dance move too many for Venezuela's ousted President Nicolás Maduro. A report by New York Times suggests that Maduro's swagger and defiance infuriated Trump. And defiance is rarely something Trump lets slide. Reportedly, Maduro in late December rejected an ultimatum from Donald Trump. Step down quietly and accept exile in Turkey or face consequences. Instead, Maduro danced. Just days ago, he appeared on Venezuelan state television bouncing to electronic music. He smiled, he shrugged, he mocked.
We have the same situation that we had.
Behind the scenes, that performance infuriated the Trump team. According to American officials involved in secret talks, the White House began to believe Maduro was calling their bluff, that he thought US threats were hollow. Trump decided to prove otherwise. Early Saturday morning, an elite US military unit launched a lightning raid in Caracas. Before dawn, they seized Nicolás Maduro and his wife Cilia Flores. Within hours, both were flown to New York. They now face stringent drug trafficking charges in US federal court. Maduro's arrest marks the most dramatic US intervention in Latin America in years. But the planning did not begin this week. Weeks earlier, US officials had already picked a successor. Their choice was Vice President Delcy Rodriguez. Trump officials say Rodriguez impressed them by managing Venezuela's collapsing oil sector with discipline and pragmatism. Intermediaries told Washington she would safeguard future American energy investments. Senior US officials believe Rodriguez can be dealt with professionally, something that was impossible with Maduro. Washington knows that Delcy Rodriguez is not a permanent solution, but she is workable for the time being. The pressing question now is, if Trump carried out regime change in Venezuela so easily, who is next? Colombia's President Gustavo Petro and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum will be wondering exactly that. For Venezuela, the message from Washington is unmistakable. Trump no longer wants symbolism. He wants stability, control, oil flows. And obedience. For Nicolás Maduro, the music has stopped. For Venezuela, a new chapter begins, written not in Caracas but in Washington. And it may all have started with a dance. With Atish Jain, Bureau Report, India Today Global.
Be happy.
As we wrap up today's show, here's a quick look at the top stories making waves around the world. The UN Security Council faced sharp division as United Nations chief Antonio Guterres warned the United States' capture of Venezuela's president could destabilize the region. China and South Korea moved to reset strained ties as Xi Jinping and Lee Jae-myung agreed to gradually revive cultural exchanges, including films and dramas. Ireland's Prime Minister Michael Martin is holding detailed trade talks with China's leadership as Dublin seek closer economic ties despite strained EU-China relations. And that brings us to the end of today's edition of Namaste World. From breakthroughs in technology and business to political developments and natural disasters. Stay tuned as we bring you the latest updates, key developments and more from New Delhi to New York. See you again tomorrow, same time, right here on Namaste World.